they tie into just normal publicity and public relations, but I mean, there's a component where they're trying to like balance like how they're viewed, and they're trying to like cater in some respects to different interests and express both like power and solidarity of certain types with Israel, but also not. But there's also these other elements and factions, and like there's a role for like arts and stuff in politics in general. And it's like this ties into this concept of YouTube wars as discussed on this episode of Riz Khan on Al Jazeera. And it's like, so it's like content on YouTube is like has like a political role, especially it ties into this whole YouTube created video that I watched about politics on YouTube in terms of like the upcoming election, presidential election, and so on. And this gets into this whole world of like media that's out there, and like these different players and their relative interests and so on. And it's like a lot of people's interests, it's like people have interests aligned to like whatever industry they might be in. People have interests aligned with their self and their family type of things, and then they have interests aligned with like maybe their country or like religion. One of the issues here comes down to this question of what can you change and what can you not change, but then it's a matter of priorities and like certain things like quality of life, and then it gets into worldviews, and it's like if you have really negative cynical worldviews, then it's like you're going to look at it all differently then and that gets into this whole thing of like this documentary called Thrive. What on earth will it take? And then it gets into this question of like conspiracy analysis, but it's like if you break down and analyze people's interests in terms of like different interests than just like a straight up scarcity issue, but understand the inner dynamics between them, between everything. I don't know. I mean, it's like I have to focus some on like my immediate situation, including like eating. I should probably go to the store again. I need to do laundry. I mean, I could do it. I mean, this is an example of like a real like sort of problem in my life, is like things like doing laundry. It's like I don't tend to be that motivated to go do laundry, and it's something I should get more energized about and get more on top of, and weave that into like my actual regular energy flow thing. And it's like the context or the concept of having like a sense of an ongoing production going on with like, or some kind of assistance component, or where I'm like getting somewhere on this whole matrix of interests or whatever and things. It's like then I'd feel more free to like go and like in these open spaces like say, okay, I'm gonna like utilize this time to go do laundry or whatever, and then it's like it would be easier to just go and I could go drop the keys, get the money, and then say I'll do the update, but it's like I just feel like they're kind of bound together, and it's like it's unclear about priority. And then it's like, I mean, I feel like, I mean, there's a whole appearance and like physical, like hygiene and like just style and all that component to functioning. And it's like, it's common for Myers-Briggs INTJs to have like more of a hard time and pay less attention to such things, but it's like I need to develop that side of me. And this is an example of something where we're going back to the education problem, when temperament is not respected and understood, and people aren't encouraged to develop sides of themselves that are like harder to like manage and so on. It's like they get weighed down in this negativity and like unconsciousness, and it's like, I mean, this gets back into almost like psychological preaching, and like, it's like, how can understanding people be promoted as like a goal? And then, but this gets into like how knowledge works, how people think knowledge works, or how knowledge works for people, for individuals. And this gets into temperament and the structure and dynamics of the psyche ultimately. I mean, that's kind of what, I mean, on some level, it's structure and dynamics of the psyche as well as priority encoding. And this gets into like orbitofrontal cortex, ventromedial cortex, dorsolateral cortex, as well as like lizard parts of the brain and like memories, and this goes back into, I mean, there's genetics, but it's like also neuroplasticity, and these are all topics I've referenced in layouts, but I should probably start literally breaking down and trying to analyze the neural circuits that are involved in different things, and like kind of challenging myself more on getting on top of those things. But it's like I'm also trying to figure out how to like scream basically and communicate the value of better understanding like where people are coming from, and better more self-awareness, and then providing the tools for people to make sense of some of these things, because a lot of times they just, even if someone's looking for answers, they're just not, things are not in a information format that is consumable. And this gets into the role of art and information design and information architecture and interaction architecture. And I mean, that's the key thing I'm trying to do, is blend information architecture with interaction architecture. And doing that requires understanding some of the structure and dynamics of the psyche, and this can be understood with reference to brain function, but it's like there are other conceptual tools that can be used to address and characterize and explain this kind of stuff. And there are videos on YouTube already that do address some of these things, like that describe how INTJs work. And it's like, one of the things I can do is like link to existing videos, but then it's like a lot of times it's like if I can figure out how to reinterpret and summarize some of these ideas, it's like there's value in that. And so, and this ties into creating sort of a curriculum or course outline that other people can move through, and this ties into interactivity in terms of respecting other people's information flows in and out. And on some level this includes also I mean, there are all these websites, right? So it's like there's Pride's Crossing and all these related sites, and this gets into, if I'm collaborating basically actively with Undine and like trying to get out of this like flake mode in terms of that whole web task queue thing. It's like that would be an option, and that could be a good thing to do, but that goes back to like some of these interactions that we've had before, and it goes back to like, I mean, again, it's like if you analyze the progression of people's lives in terms of scenes, and in terms of what people say during a given scene and then interpret from it, what people are kind of trying to get out of something and what they implicitly expect, and it's like what are the next scenes, so to speak. And it's like weird, it is weird to analyze things in terms of that, but really it's like there are components to this whole situation.